In the year 1559, a queen became a widow. Her husband, King Henry II of France, died in a jousting accident. She was 40 years old. She had no army of her own, no political allies she could fully trust. 3 of her sons were too young, too weak, or too unstable to rule. And the most powerful families in France were already circling, waiting for the moment they could take everything. By every measure of the time, she should have disappeared, remarried, retired, faded into the background of history as a footnote. Instead, she ruled France for 30 years, through wars, assassinations, religious massacres, and the collapse of dynasties, through the reigns of 3 of her own sons, through betrayals so frequent and so severe that lesser people would have broken entirely. Her name was Catherine de Medici, and what she understood about power, they have never fully taught in any classroom. This is not a video about a historical figure. It is a video about a method, a way of operating in a world that does not want you to succeed. A set of principles that Catherine developed not from privilege or advantage, but from decades of surviving in environments that were actively designed to destroy her. She was not born powerful. She learned power. And what she learned is still operating in every room you have ever walked into. Catherine was born in Florence in 1519. Her parents died within weeks of her birth. She was raised by relatives, passed between households, educated by nuns. At 14, she was married to Henry, the second son of the French king. Not the heir, not the future ruler, just a spare. She arrived in France speaking accented French, with no political connections, no military support, and the disadvantage of being Italian in a court that viewed Italians with contempt. For 10 years, she produced no children. In a royal court where a queen's only function was to provide heirs. 10 years of silence was a death sentence in slow motion. The whispers were constant. Send her back. Annul the marriage. Find someone else. And through all of it, Catherine watched. She said very little. She offended no one. She made herself useful in ways so quiet that no one thought to see them as strategy. She was learning the court, every weakness, every alliance, every secret ambition, storing it all, waiting. Then she had children, 10 of them. 3 became kings of France, 1 became Queen of Spain, 1 became Queen of Navarre, and Catherine became the most powerful woman in Europe. Not by force, by patience, by observation, and by a set of principles so precise and so ruthless that her enemies never saw them coming until it was already too late. Never show your hand. Catherine operated in a court where information was the primary currency. Everyone was watching everyone else. Every expression, every alliance, every absence from a gathering was analyzed, interpreted, and used. In this environment, Catherine developed a discipline that her contemporaries found almost unnerving. She revealed nothing she didn't intend to reveal. Her face in public was a performance. Her words were calculated to the syllable. Her reactions to news, good or bad, were so controlled that observers frequently couldn't tell what she actually thought. This was not coldness. It was armor. In a court where your reactions are studied by people who want to use them against you, the face that shows nothing is the face that survives. Her enemies made the opposite mistake repeatedly. They were expressive, passionate, transparent in their ambitions. They announced, through their behavior, exactly what they wanted and exactly what they feared. And Catherine used every announcement they made. Not immediately, not obviously, but in the fullness of time, with the patience of someone who understood that power does not move in straight lines. It accumulates in silence, in observation, in the long game that most people lack the discipline to play. Keep your enemies where you can see them after the death of her husband. Catherine faced a problem that would have paralyzed most rulers. The most dangerous man in France was Francis, Duke of Guise. He was powerful, popular, militarily brilliant and openly ambitious. He wanted the throne. He had the support to take it. The obvious move, the move that most advisors suggested, was to remove him, exile him, discredit him, neutralize him. Catherine refused. Instead, she kept him close. She gave him positions of prominence. She invited him to counsel. She treated him with visible respect. Her advisors thought she had lost her mind. She had not. She understood something about enemies that most people never learn. An enemy you can see is an enemy you can manage. An enemy you exile becomes an enemy you cannot predict. The Duke of Guise, kept close, was forced to operate under observation. His moves were visible. His alliances were traceable. His ambitions were containable. The moment he was pushed out, he would have moved to the shadows, and in the shadows he would have been far more dangerous. This principle, keep your enemies close, is older than Catherine. It was practiced in the courts of Rome. It was written about by Sun Tzu. It was understood by every long-lasting power structure in history, but Catherine applied it with a precision that was uniquely her own. She didn't just keep her enemies close, she gave them enough rope. She let them believe they were winning. She allowed their ambitions to become visible in the safety of proximity. And then, when the moment arrived, she pulled. Use the thing. They underestimate. Catherine's most powerful weapon was one that her enemies handed her themselves. They underestimated her because she was a woman, because she was foreign, because she had spent a decade producing no heirs and attracting no allies, because she smiled when she was angry and was generous when she was calculating. They saw what she showed them, and what she showed them was never the whole picture. In 1560, her eldest son, Francis II, died. Her second son, Charles, 10 years old, became king. Catherine became regent. The court assumed this was temporary, a placeholder, a warm body on the throne until the real power consolidated elsewhere. They began to move accordingly. The Guise family maneuvered for control. Protestant nobles armed themselves. Catholic hardliners plotted. Everyone was so busy calculating their own position that no one noticed Catherine was already 3 moves ahead. She had spent a decade watching every person in that court. She knew what each of them wanted. She knew what each of them feared. And she knew, with the precision of someone who had studied the game for years before being allowed to play it, exactly which lever to pull for each one. The underestimation that was supposed to destroy her became the greatest strategic advantage she ever had. Because people who underestimate you stop watching you, and people who stop watching you give you the freedom to move. Survive first, win second. Catherine is often criticized by historians for a decision she made in August 1572, the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. Thousands of Protestant Huguenots were killed in Paris and across France. The historical record on Catherine's exact role remains debated. But what is clear is the context in which the decision was made. France was on the edge of civil war. The Protestant leadership was gathered in Paris for a wedding. The Catholic Guise faction was moving toward open conflict. Catherine was caught between 2 forces, either of which could destroy the monarchy entirely. She made a choice: A terrible, brutal, historically condemned choice, but a choice made from the calculation that has defined every survivor of genuinely dangerous environments throughout history. Survive first, everything else second. This is not a moral endorsement of what happened. It is an observation about the logic that operates when the alternative to a terrible choice is the end of everything you have spent your life protecting. Catherine did not build a legacy of kindness. She built a legacy of survival, and in the world she inhabited, survival was the prerequisite for everything else. Never let them see you break in 30 years of ruling France. Catherine faced the deaths of 3 of her sons. She watched her children's marriages collapse. She saw the country she had devoted her life to maintaining, torn apart by religious war again and again. She was betrayed by people she had trusted, undermined by people she had protected, abandoned by people she had invested in. And in public, she never broke. Not because she didn't feel it, because she understood something about power that is as true today as it was in 16th century France. The moment you show that something has broken you is the moment the people waiting for that signal begin to move. Grief is human, pain is real, breaking is inevitable, but the timing of when you let it show is a choice, and the people who survive the longest in difficult environments are the ones who choose that timing carefully. They grieve in private. They rebuild in private. They return to the room as if they were never gone. Catherine de Medici was not a good person by conventional standards. She was ruthless, calculating, and capable of decisions that caused enormous suffering. But she was also a woman who arrived in a foreign country at 14 with nothing, and died 70 years later, having shaped the course of European history. The gap between those two facts is strategy. Specifically, it is the strategy of someone who understood that the world does not reward the deserving. It rewards the prepared, the patient, the ones who watch more than they speak, who reveal less than they know, who keep their enemies close enough to monitor and far enough to manage, who survive the terrible choices because they understand that survival is the foundation of everything that comes after. You are not Catherine de Medici. You do not rule a country. You are not surrounded by people who want your throne, but you are surrounded by people who have agendas, who have interests that may not align with yours, who are watching you even when you think no one is watching, and the principles that kept one woman alive and powerful through 30 years of the most dangerous political environment in Renaissance Europe are the same principles that operate in every office, every family, every social environment you will ever inhabit. Watch more than you speak, reveal less than you know. Keep the people who want to hurt you where you can see them use the thing they underestimate. Survive first and never let them see you break. History remembered Catherine de Medici as a villain, as the Black Queen, as the woman behind the massacre. But history is written by the people who survived her, and every single one of them had to reckon with the fact that she outlasted them. VeilMind, Decode, the hidden rules of the mind. They never taught you this in school.